said earlier this week if we should just, we should advertise as exorcism this Sunday and see if that would impact people and their interests. Why? People are fascinated with the topic of exorcism and demons. Millions of dollars have been made off of movies highlighting demonic possession and the fight against it. It's shocking in a culture where people deny the supernatural that demonic possession is something that people are still enticed by and entertained by, right? We deny everything spiritual, but we're like, but this one thing, that's real. I think it may be a remnant of the impact of a Christian worldview, even on those who have long since rejected Christianity. Ironically, I think it's something that those who hold to Christianity either go to extremes on. They either think about such supernatural realms, they either never think about such supernatural realms of angels or demons, or it's all they think about. It seems when you encounter Christians, it's one or the other. Some people look for demons around every corner. They think everything that goes wrong is a demon. I think I've said before, there was a lady I talked to years ago who every time something went wrong, she's like, it's the demon broke my washing machine. I'm like, sometimes they just go bad. Sometimes it just happens, right? A demon is not the one that didn't make your car start or took away the close parking spot at HEB. Others, and I think our tradition as Reformed people may be more along this tendency, we act as if nothing is supernatural. But demons are real. And if there's one thing we can see throughout the Gospels, we see the activity of them. And though they may not inhabit your washing machine or be at play in every frustrating incident in your life, they are real and active. There are demonic influences and activities around us. I believe false religions and false gods is actually demon worship, right? So I don't think that's like, you look at the drawings of Hindu gods and you're like, that's demon. So airs on there's Jesus greater than the angels. He is sovereign over the spiritual realm. Well, demons are angelic beings. Jesus reigns over them. They rage against him, but they cannot rival him. This is not a war where the outcome is in doubt. In fact, I think our passage today demonstrates, reinforces this point, that Jesus has power over evil, over the supernatural. They rage against him. He speaks a word and they fall away. They rage against him, but they know that he defeats them easily. So that's why I say they may be rebelling against him, but they're not rivals in the sense that Jesus is worried about his power over these things. In fact, you see that in his calm demeanor and response in this passage. You're already there in Matthew 8. I'll remind you that we have seen Jesus demonstrate his power over many things through this series on miracles. Jesus demonstrated his power over the sick. He has healed the blind, the deaf, the paralyzed. In Matthew 8, he just calmed the sea, a miracle we didn't spend time on, mostly because Jim Leavenworth preached a phenomenal sermon on it a couple years ago on that and the demon-possessed man from Mark 5. So if you have not listened to that sermon, go back and listen to that on our website. But I couldn't do an entire series on miracles in the book of Matthew and not revisit the power of Jesus over demons and freeing those that were possessed by them. So I want to read the passage again, ask a few questions of the text, and then see what do we learn about Jesus' identity? What do we learn about who Jesus is? After all, that's been our primary goal through this entire series, right? What do the miracles teach us about Jesus' identity? All right, look with me, Matthew chapter 8, verse 28. And when he came to the other side, to the country of the Gadarenes, 2 demon-possessed men met him, coming out of the tomb so fierce that no one could pass that way. And behold, they cried out, "What have you to do with us, O Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time?" Now a herd of many pigs was feeding at some distance from them. And the demons begged him, saying, "If you cast us out, send us away into the herd of pigs." And Jesus said to them, "Go." So they came out and went into the pigs, and behold, the whole herd rushed down the steep bank into the sea and drowned in the waters. The herdsmen fled, and going into the city, they told everything, especially what had happened to the demon-possessed men. And behold, all the city came out to meet Jesus, and when they saw him, they begged him to leave their region. This story, or aspects of it, show up in the other gospel accounts as well, in Mark and Luke as well. In Matthew's gospel account, this is the first encounter recorded between Jesus and a man who is demon-possessed, a demoniac, as it's often referred to. Each of the previous miracle accounts have taught us aspects of Jesus' identity, that he's the promised Messiah, the good shepherd, the king of all creation, the one who forgives sins, the one who purifies the unclean, and even that he's the Son of God. We've learned that. Here we see that's the exact title used by the demons in recognizing Jesus. They seem to understand something that even the disciples were slow to pick up. In Matthew 14, it took Jesus walking on water and pulling a flailing Peter back into the boat for the disciples to worship him by saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." But here, the demons recognized him immediately. In fact, they even approach him. Look at verse 28. Two men met him. They came out to him. They were looking for him in the sense. It boggles the mind to me that demons would approach Jesus knowing who he is, knowing his power, knowing what he could do to them. But let's take a step back for a moment. In the previous section, verses 23 through 27, Jesus and his disciples were on a boat in the Sea of Galilee. A great storm arose and the disciples were afraid, all while Jesus is sleeping. Verse 26, you can look back and see this. Verse 26, Jesus tells us Jesus rose and rebuked the winds and the sea. Well, what does that tell us? Well, Jesus is sovereign over the things he rebukes, right? The one who spoke all things into existence has power over all things. Which, by the way, it reinforces again why the creation account is so important in Genesis 1. As in Genesis 1, God is laying out the extent of his sovereignty and power. And so what do we see in Genesis 1 that God created? The answer is all things. And you go, but what about those universes beyond the universes? He created those too. In the beginning, there was nothing besides God. And God spoke into the nothing and created all things. And as he expands, as he lays out the boundaries of his authority and kingdom and sovereignty, what falls inside of it? Everything falls inside of it. Everything. All planets, all stars, all inhabitants of this earth, whether it be human beings or animals or birds or fish, God has sovereignty over them all. And not just that, he has sovereignty over the nature he created. He has sovereignty over the storms and the winds. The disciples in verse 27 marvel that even the wind and seas obey him. Well, of course they do. He created them. They belong to him. They do what he says. And immediately after that, they hit land on the other side of the sea, and this interaction happens. Verse 28 tells us that Jesus is in the country of the Gadarenes. Gadara was a large city on the east of the Sea of Galilee. This is not the land of the Hebrews. This is a Gentile country. It should be clear because there's pigs there. Mark tells us this is happening, Mark in his gospel tells us this is happening in a village outside of Gadara called Gerasa. That's why you also heard the Gadarene demoniacs also called the Gerasene demoniacs. It's not different places, it's the same location, different names for the place. Both are accurate. One commentator, I love this, describes this as Jesus' first missionary journey. Right? He's outside of the land of the Hebrews. He's going out to the Gentiles. Jesus has been active in Galilee and Capernaum, but now he has come to the land of the Gentiles, and the first encounter is with men who are possessed by demons. Note what Matthew tells us about them. Verse 28. They are so fierce that no one could pass that way. They were essentially the trolls blocking the bridge. No one would go that direction because they were so fierce, so violent. The people were so scared of them that they just avoided that area completely. Mark and Luke, you'll note if you read the accounts, the parallel accounts in Mark and Luke, identify one demoniac in their accounts. Some say, and I think this is true, that they're focusing on the primary leader of this, the one that's doing the speaking for the two demoniacs. So if you're going, well, there's two here, there's one in those accounts, I think they're just talking about the one who is doing the speaking, the primary leader, the one who's more up front. But Mark definitely highlights things for us 3 dead, meaning from bones there, any Jew who would come there could not go there. Later in that same verse, we read this, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. For he had often been bound with shackles and chains, but he wrenched the chains apart and he broke the shackles in pieces. No one had the strength to subdue him. What does that tell us? It tells us that for a while, there was an attempt by the people to get control of this guy, or these men. They were so violent and so out of control that the people would try to get them and put them in chains, and that way they're kind of locked down and they can't torment anyone. But they became so strong that they could wrench the chains apart, break shackles into pieces, and no one had the strength to subdue them. So they were basically left alone out there. Violent, alone in the tombs. No one could bind them, so strong. No one could even limit them. Verse 5 in Mark tells us, night and day among the tombs and on the mountains, he was always crying out and cutting himself with stones. His behavior, the behavior of the demoniacs, was violent. It was self-destructive. The actions were irrational and senseless. The lesson is these demoniacs were out of their mind, right? Luke, in his account in Luke 8, tells us that they had no proper home. Of course, he was living among the tombs, and that he wore no clothes. So if I could put all the things that we were learning from Matthew, Mark, and Luke together, what we learn is this. These men's condition was naked, isolated, violent, and insane. Naked, isolated, violent, and insane. Those four words summarize the demoniacs. Naked, isolated, violent, insane. These men's condition, each one of those things individually, but collectively, were helpless. There was nothing that anyone could do to fix their problem. You couldn't get close enough to put clothes on the man. You didn't want to go near them because they're so violent. They're so self-destructive. They were out of their minds. Why? Because they were possessed by demons. But all the outside effects, the picture of the demon possession was naked, isolated, violent, and insane. They were outside of society. No human limitations on them. They could not be morally or physically restrained. They were wicked and out of their minds. They were virtually lacking in humanity. The things that made them human were now being removed from them. The hosts of the demons are not in control. They're even harming themselves physically. In Mark and Luke, Jesus asked the demoniac his name, and he doesn't give them a human name. He doesn't say, my name's Bill. I live in Gadara. So he claims to be legion. For there are many demons present inside the ones who are possessed. How many? We're not told exactly, but a Roman legion is over 6,000 troops. I might give a little bit of a hint of what we're talking about here. These men are without hope. They have no power over a single demon, much less a legion of demons. And that's why they can't help but hurt themselves and why they live outside of society in and among the tombs of the Gerasenes. You see, the demons are working to make these men unrecognizable, unclean, unwanted, rejected. They're essentially making the men inhuman. Everything about them is resembling the exact opposite of what humanity is. It's as if they're wiping away all hints of the true humanity and identity of these men, trying to wipe away the image of God in them. The possessed men are getting, in a very real sense, a foretaste of hell itself. And then Jesus comes walking by. I don't know about you, but I don't see this as an accident. I don't think Jesus just happened to get off the boat at that exact spot. It just happened to be near these guys. This is another, as we call them, divine appointments, where Jesus is coming to carry out his mission. Now, I want to point out here also, unlike the movies, and some online characters might suggest, demon possession is actually historically rare, even in Scripture. There's only one instance in the Old Testament of demon possession, in 1 Samuel 16. After the Gospels, we only see one instance in Acts, in chapter 16. But it's extremely prevalent during Jesus' ministry. Isn't that interesting? It makes us ask the question, well, why? It's as if when the king comes to usher in his kingdom, Satan and his minions want to thwart it in any way possible. Demons become active, even though they seemingly, according to the testimony here, they know the end result. They know what awaits them. And it's interesting, they don't even really question that. They don't go, Jesus, I know what you say will happen in the end, but we're going to make sure that doesn't happen. They go, are you here to torment us before it's time? They know the time is coming. They don't know when it is, but they know precisely that Jesus is Lord over them and that he will torment them, that they will be punished. They will be thrown into the lake of fire. They will be eternally judged and damned. They don't push up against Jesus as if they're going to stop that from happening. It just seems as if they want to make as much havoc in his kingdom before then. But yet, as they come active, they know the end. They want to undermine the kingdom. They want to mar the humanity Jesus has come to save. They want to try and spread evil in his kingdom. They know the end result will be their defeat. But here comes the king. Having just calmed the sea, now he encounters demonic forces who possess these two men. And the demoniacs approach him. Verse 29, let's look at this. We see that in verse 28, the men met him coming out of the tombs. And behold, they cried out, "What have you to do with us, O Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time?" They ask that question, "What have you to do with us, O Son of God?" The demons know who Jesus is. They know his title. They know his identity. They know he is the Son of the Most High. They know he's the promised Messiah. They know he's the rightful king. And they know what his plan is with them. They know the end of the story, and they know it isn't quite that time, so they seem to think maybe they can avoid the temporary wrath that he might dish out at this moment. They know he has power over them. They know they cannot do anything without him allowing it. You notice they don't try to attack him. They don't come out and rebuke him. What do? They come, they're trying to know you have power, which about, and they cry out to Jesus using this hope it isn't today. And they're simply pleading for a delay. And they cry out to Jesus using this title, Son of God. Interestingly, this isn't the first time this title is used of Jesus in Matthew. Now, this is outside the scope of our series a bit, but back in Matthew 4, we first hear it used of Jesus. You can turn back a few pages if you want, Matthew 4. If your Bible has headings, you've already been spoiled a bit because you can see this is the temptation of Jesus by Satan himself. In verse 3, he tempts Jesus this way. The tempter came and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." Jesus answered him, quoting scripture, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." In verse 6, after the devil took him to the holy city and set him up on the pinnacle of the temple, he says to him in verse 6, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you. And on their hands they will bear you up, lest you strike your foot against a stone." Jesus said to him, "Again it is written, you shall not put the Lord your God to the test." What we see there is that even the devil himself knows who Jesus is. He knows his title. He knows his rightful power. In the Bible, it's only human beings that are too dumb to really see Jesus for who he is. All the demons know, and what do we see in their response? They shudder. If you're here today and you doubt Jesus is God, you doubt he is who he claims to be, you have truthfully embraced a view that is lower than demonic. Isn't that a sad reality? The demons recognize Jesus as God. If you go, "I don't think Jesus is God," your view is sub-demon. Your theology is sub-demon. It's not greater than demons, it's sub-demon. Even demons understand that Jesus is God. The demons, Satan himself, they don't bow the knee to Jesus, but they know who he is. How foolish are we to not even admit who he is, to just say he's a good teacher or a miracle worker? The miracles, if I've tried to reiterate anything over this series, is that they aren't about displays of power, but about a revelation of Jesus' identity as God, that he's the true Messiah. Yes, he has power over all these things, but it's not about a man having power over things. It's about God in the flesh demonstrating his identity. And his identity has power. All the instances of people in Matthew's gospel using this term, this is very interesting, are either Satan and demons using of Jesus or human beings questioning him and mocking him. Jesus is interrogated by the high priest in chapter 26, verse 63, by asking him if he's the Son of God. The thieves in chapter 27 mock Jesus with this title. And then later, the priests and scribes in the same chapter, in chapter 27, verse 40 and 43, mock Jesus by calling him Son of God. Opponents are mocking Jesus by the title. Demons admit the title is true. It tells you exactly where opponents fall in the line of recognition, doesn't it? To be an opponent of Jesus, to be an opponent of God is not a good place. You are not morally neutral. You're sub-demon. Only twice in Matthew's gospel does someone use it as a title of worship. Very interesting. The disciples in Matthew 14, after Jesus walked on water, remember that? Walks on water and he goes, truly you are the Son of God. And they worship him. And the final time is when the Roman centurion, after Jesus' death, declares, truly this is the Son of God. The only two times where Son of God is used by humans in worship. All the rest are used in mocking. It's as if Matthew is using this title to teach us the difference between truth and lies, between faith and rejection. The demons know the truth, but fools reject the truth. The demons refuse to submit to the truth. Fools refuse to submit to the truth. Only those whom God has enabled to see and acknowledge Jesus' identity and submit themselves to that truth in worship are those who are wise. You see, Matthew is calling all of us who hear his gospel message to recognize the truth. And not to just recognize the truth, even demons do that, but to bow the knee to the truth, to bow the knee to the one who is the Son of God, to worship the one who is the true king, who is sovereign over all things, including demons, including Satan. He is the true Son of God. Every story is screaming the truth of Jesus' identity. And we are fools if we don't see it and submit to it. Fools. So I urge you today, see the truth of Jesus' identity. That's what this whole goal has been about, is to point us, who is Christ? Who is Jesus? Who is the Son of God? And then to go, he's worthy of your worship. He's worthy of you laying down your life and following him. Every story is screaming this truth. This is no mere moral teacher. He's not just a prophet or a miracle worker. This is God in the flesh, the promised king. And these demons don't worship, but they know the truth. They know their future judgment is coming. Have you come here to torment us before the time? They're not doubting that the time is coming. They just hope it's not right now. It's kind of sad when I encounter human beings who do the same thing. I'll deal with Jesus later on. Don't tell me about the gospel now. Let me just have my fun. I'll deal with it later on. They hope the time is just not now. The demons didn't know when it was coming, but the judgment was coming. Friends, judgment is coming for all of us. Only those who belong to Christ will endure it. Matthew's calling all of us to bow the knee and trust in him. Luke tells us that they begged Jesus not to cast them into the abyss, the place of eternal torment, the place God is destined for judgment. They know that's their future. Like I said, they want it delayed. So they begged to be sent into the nearby pigs. Look back at Matthew 8 and verse 31. And the demons begged him, saying, if you cast us out, send us away into the herd of pigs. Right? They're just negotiating their terms of surrender at this point. Okay, and you notice who was silent in this? Jesus. Right? Moves in silence like lasagna. Real G. Right? He's moving in silence. He's not saying a word to them. The demons are doing all the talking. Hey, we know who you are, Jesus. You're the Son of God. We know who you are. Jesus says nothing. Have you come here to torment us, Jesus? He says nothing. It's not the time yet, Jesus. Jesus says nothing. Okay, we get it. All right. He's, again, silent the whole time. Okay, all right, we get it. Just, if you're going to cast us out into those pigs. Jesus has said no words to this point. They're doing all the talking. They're negotiating these terms against themselves. And Jesus fulfills the request. Jesus fulfills the request. It's really interesting in verse 32. And he says to them, go. Don't let the bank into the sea and drown in the waters. Careful readers, and we've talked about this in the past, will know that the sea is a symbol of judgment throughout the Bible. Evil humanity is wiped out by the waters of the sea in Noah's day, right? Likewise, the Egyptian armies suffer God's judgment in the sea. Jesus has demonstrated his power over the sea in the previous verses, meaning he has sovereign control over judgment. By the way, this is why Peter talks about this as baptism corresponding to this picture, that we go into the waters of baptism and we endure judgment because we're clothed in Christ. The picture of us going under the water and coming back out is that we endure judgment. Christ takes the judgment for us. We come out and we walk in newness of life. It's going into the sea, going into the picture of the waters that is this full picture of what it means to belong to Christ. To go into the sea unclothed in Christ is to go into the sea like the people in the days of Noah outside the ark. Doesn't matter how strong a swimmer you are, you won't survive. Or to be like the Egyptian army as God closed the Red Sea over them. It may not be time for the demons to face final judgment, but they're going to get a quick taste of it right here. When Jesus sent them into those pigs, and the pigs went and jumped immediately into the sea. The end result, the demons tasted judgment, and those men that they left tasted freedom. The demons have no power over Jesus. They have to ask permission. As I've said, they're enemies, sure, but they're not rivals. Jesus isn't threatened by them. At any point in this, do you see Jesus worried that he's facing two demoniacs? These two men that the people won't even go near because they're so violent and insane that people won't even go near them, and Jesus walks right by them, and they come up to him. He shows no fear. They say, just throw us into those pigs over there. He says, go. And they do it immediately. He is Lord over them. He is the true Son of God. They beg him for delay to obey him when he says to go. The only word he speaks in this entire story. Jesus isn't some exorcist in battle with demons having to say incantations and casting holy water, any of those kind of fictitious representations of this stuff. Jesus has power over demons. He says one word and they vanish. Church, this is who Jesus is. There is no demonic power out there that is over him or controls him or rivals him or stops him from doing what he wants to do. For him to be sovereign means that his will be accomplished. His word will return to him not being void, but it's going to accomplish exactly what he wants it to do. It's going to return to him full. That's why he can say to you that you have no need to fear anything that's happening out there in the world around us. Yes, demonic power may be at work. Demonic influence is certainly at work in the world around us, but it will not win because Jesus is Lord over all. And we need to remember his encouragement to us in 1 John 4. This is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you heard was coming and is now in the world already. This is kind of demonic influence in the world. Little children, you are from God who has overcome them. For he who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. Church, trust in Jesus. This is our King. This is our God. And rest in his sovereignty. Now, Matthew doesn't end his story with the drowning of the pigs. There is fallout, after all. Jesus just destroyed a herd of pigs. The Jew coming into a Gentile region and killing the unclean animals would likely cause a commotion. But it seems the herdsman's focus wasn't on the pigs. Look at verse 33. The herdsmen fled, and going to the city, they told everything, especially what had happened to the demon-possessed men. Yet the city was still enraged about the pigs, all that bacon and sausage gone forever at the bottom of the Sea of Galilee. What a waste. Verse 34, and behold, all the city came out to meet Jesus, and when they saw him, they begged him to leave their region. Now, Mark and Luke end the story differently. They focus on the demoniac, the leader of the demoniacs, and what Jesus did for them. Mark's account tells us this. The herdsmen fled and told it to the city and the country, and people came to see what it was that had happened. And they came to Jesus and saw the demon-possessed man, the one who had the legion, sitting there, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Then the people asked Jesus to leave, and Mark tells us the formerly demon-possessed man tries to leave with Jesus. I love this picture. He tries to get in the boat with Jesus. He begs Jesus, we read, but instead Jesus tells him, go home to your friends and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you. And he went away and began to proclaim in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and everyone marveled. To the people of Gadarene, Jesus was a threat. But to the ones set free by Jesus from the power of demons, he's the Lord, the Son of God. They now see clearly. They think clearly. The one who did so much for him that he became an evangelist for the greatness of God. Jesus tells him, go and tell everyone. And he did it, and everyone marveled at what Jesus had done. And everyone marveled at the story of power over demons. What are we to think about this? I mean, I guess if there was such a group at the time, PETA would launch a campaign against Jesus. But doesn't this tell us, counter so much modern propaganda that we are just animals on the same level? Human and animals are the same? Whenever people say, listen, as human beings, we're just animals, I often go, like, we live in West Texas. How many pieces of roadkill did you pass on the drive here? Yet you stopped for none of them, right? You don't really believe that. You don't really believe we're animals. If there was a human being on the side of the road, you would stop. Because you know inherently that human beings are of greater value. 2 men filled with demons are of greater value than a herd of pigs. It's foolish to suggest otherwise. Everyone in their right mind knows that. We live in a society, though, that doesn't value human life. If it'll call babies in the wombs clumps of cells to justify abortion, it will charge people with federal crimes for accidentally harming eagle's nest or turtle's nest on the beach. It's all out of whack. Our society has largely banished the death penalty, which was given to promote the sanctity of life. These are symptoms of a low view of humanity. So that I can dare love for death. Those men intervened, they went to them earlier. But what a glorious testimony of what Jesus does for the demoniacs. In Luke's account, we read this. Then people went out to see what had happened. And they came to Jesus and found the man of whom the demons had gone, sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind. So after Jesus healed this man or these men, how did people find him? What did the former demoniacs look like after they encountered Jesus? How did they act? No longer naked, but clothed. No longer violent, but resting, sitting at Jesus' feet. No longer insane, but in his right mind. No longer isolated, but with Jesus and his disciples. And in this living parable, Jesus, the Son of God, does not leave them there. He shows what it means for the Savior to go to the place of the unclean, deliver them from evil, restore them to their right minds. He pictures salvation for all who believe in the exorcism of these men. Isn't this what Jesus does for all who believe, for all whom he calls to himself, for all who belong to him? Our entire natures have changed. New hearts, new minds, eyes that can see clearly, ears that hear, completely new natures, new desires. We can start thinking clearly for the first time. The Spirit of God inside of us to lead us into righteousness, no longer isolated and separated, but brought into the people of God, included in the covenant promises, given the family inheritance, connected to other believers to live with and walk with in the local church as we follow the Lord. The exorcism and healing of the demoniacs is a demonstration of God's power over the demonic, over the spiritual realm, and it's a picture, a parable, if you will, of what Jesus does to save his people. So what is this passage about? It's about Jesus, shocker, about his power over demons, his power over evil. It's about his identity as the Son of God. It's about his work to save his people and change them from the inside out. I don't think we should walk away from this passage or any passage focused that talks about the demoniacs fixated on the demonic, even fixated on those demons or the ones who are possessed by them. This should lead us not to worry about demons or to be looking behind every rock for them, every difficulty or disappointment, looking for demons. Now, it should open our eyes to the spiritual realities and battles that we have happening around us, not to be naive. But this doesn't lead us to the conclusion that Jesus is somehow in a fight for control, or this is a battle that he has the possibility of losing. Jesus simply says one word and the demons flee into pigs. The pigs run off a cliff. The demons self-selected exorcism rather than be destroyed. Immediately. They knew their destiny. They know they're in. Make no mistake, demons are no threat to Jesus. When the next TV show or movie that pops up, remind yourself, demons are no threat to Jesus. And they're no threat to his people because we have the power of God. We have the King. Jesus will overthrow every single one of them and throw them into the lake of fire. They will face judgment from the King and the judge of the universe. They are not rivals to his power. They're subjects to it. But I think also we focus on the spiritual picture here. Jesus frees people from the sway of demonic power and influence, which works on 2 levels. This is kind of the final application. We'll end here. Works on 2 levels. 1, we can celebrate that the Lord has made us alive. The ones who were once dead in sin, he made alive by his life, death, and resurrection. We who were once spiritually naked, isolated, violent, insane, he has brought us to see clearly, included his family, ministers of peace sitting at his feet, clothed in righteousness. That's our identity. That's a picture of salvation. But as we think, as it goes out beyond us, we can rejoice in the fact that our God is sovereign over these things and he has saved us, sovereign over the demonic realm. But we also think about this kind of evangelistically and in the way that we think about our friends and loved ones. That means the second way it works is that none of your loved ones who have bought into the lies of the devil and reject the Lord are too far from being saved. Not one of them. Yes, their views are demonic. They might be practicing things that are far from God. They might believe things that are terribly unbiblical. But be faithful to preach the gospel and call them to believe. The Lord still frees people from the lies that enslave them. That leads them to irrational thoughts and actions, the lies that lead them to harm themselves physically and spiritually. All of us were once there to varying degrees, but no one is too far from his reach, not even the ones people want to leave alone as they live among the tombs. And so I hope that gives you confidence that you can be praying for and continue to minister to and share the gospel with your friends and loved ones who are not following Christ, who you think are involved in the worst possible things. There's nothing too far for Jesus to save them out of. Church, our hope isn't that we can talk demoniacs into being calmer, cleaner versions of themselves. Our hope is in the one who's greater than evil, greater than the power of sin and Satan and death, the one who defeats all three by his resurrection, and yes, has power over demons. Our hope is in the true Son of God, the one that we affirm as true and bow down in worship of. We can rest in that truth. We can find confidence in that truth, church. May we live as if that's true. May we worship the Son of God, the one who has power over demons and power over all things.